done before, so we don't forget.
What effect will that have on the mean, the median, and the standard deviation?
Late 1800s, early 1900s are...
When we sit down as a district team and review the progress we've made with our district learning improvement plan with our school board, it's really the principals bringing evidence and artifacts of the work that they've been doing all year long to the table and sharing those with community members, with the school board, with the district office staff. And the thing that's most gratifying is not only is there multiple examples of that evidence, but from building to building, elementary school to high school, the types of evidence is similar. We're on the same page, we're working towards common goals, and we have a seamless process from elementary to middle school to high school, and the conversations that occur with administrators are the same.
Our administrative team made a commitment to close the achievement gap at all levels. We have all the information we need to set up the system to help that child be successful. Every month, we're looking at those students that essentially did not pass that state assessment. We're looking at their benchmark results. We're looking at their common assessment results. We're asking ourselves, are we adding value to these kids?
Instead of just glancing over the top of standards, we're actually going to go deeper with the standards, and we're going to have some level of mastery that we can try and assess at some point. We may have to come back to it later in the year, obviously, but before, I think what we were doing is more of a grasshopper, just kind of touching all these standards because there's so many of them. So we prioritize them and we go deeper with them. I think we're going to see some real gains in that.
At our PLC meetings, we'd oftentimes just show, this is the assessment that we've started. It's not perfect, it's going to be changed, it's going to get better with everyone's voices being heard, but we could have had a starting point, and the starting point was a great way for our building teams to then decide what are we going to do lesson by lesson, learning target by learning target to get to that end result that everyone's sharing.
We've kind of established a process that's now being able to bring other grade levels on board. So second and first grade have joined us with this work now, are in the process of doing the same work, and sixth grade will be joining us. And so what we've established is going both directions to continue to align the district with a kind of a common vision for ELA.
It's on the unit plan.
Oh, let me look.
Yep, 80%.
And we had a great conversation about why it's important for the board to see the data that the teachers are actually using in their classrooms. Not just district-wide data, but actual data so that we can understand the work of the teams in the buildings and how important it is. Then that helps us as we look towards allocating resources and training, and it just helps with the understanding. I think the first thing we have to do as a board is make sure that we're knowledgeable about the work that's actually happening in each classroom.
In the professional development area on instructional strategies, what are those strategies? Now we have a unit. We can now hang some real strong instructional types of practices and be really clear. And that's probably an expertise area for a lot of our staff, but now we can have some real, what is the clear research out there of some of these practices, so that'll be great. But we're also going to be wanting to say, okay, so what are some of those really strong interventions that we can do with our kids, embedding those into the skeleton plan. There might be some there that we can put into the plan, but then allow the teams to also look at other ones. But then also, what are there going to be those extensions? So you just follow those questions out, and there's more work there to be done.
And I see it continuing to improve as we look at it and as we go through. Even this year, we added more and we were more specific. Other teams made it their own too, but it's also something that is on the shared drive, so it's shared for for our third grade team here, but for the whole district.
You can walk into the staff conference room and every student has the name and their benchmark assessment scores on a sticky note on the wall. And they're color-coded green because they started in Tier 1, they're yellow where they started in Tier 2, or red because they started in Tier 3. Their sticky note moves throughout the year as they improve their test scores. You can talk to any of the teachers at a particular grade level, and not only do they know why that child's score moved, but they know what their potential is for the next period of testing as well.
So we use our TACA form, and I've printed off just part of it here. All the teachers and their classes, we have the data put down for how their students did. We take a look at how did our students do as a whole not just one class, but how did our students do as a whole. And we talk about where are their kind of holes for that unit, where are their strengths, where are their weaknesses, what do we need to do this year to fill those holes for the students.
As a special ed teacher, being in the classroom and understanding the skills that needed to be taught, we could take it back to a classroom in a support setting and break it down to where we knew the kids, you know, based on their accommodations. Some kids did oral testing. I had to scribe for a number of kids because their processing skills were slow. So by them not having to work on just writing and just focusing on, okay, this is how I solved the problem, they could explain the steps to me and I would process it out for them in writing.
Kids that are struggling, we have our algebra support curriculum and a course. So those kids have a class supplemental to their algebra course where they receive extra time to review material, pre-teach upcoming material, and have more chance for one-on-one interactions with the teacher, so smaller class size.
One of the classes that we often have multiple sign-ups in is Algebra 1 for summer school, the kids that didn't pass during the year. We're not able to run Algebra 1 in summer school this year because we only had a minor handful of kids that weren't successful, and it wasn't enough for us to run the class. So that's a real testament to the team. We'll catch those kids up in the fall and get them the support they need.
And so one of the shifts that we have been making this year is emphasizing more time for both our resource room students and title students in the core. We want them to receive core instruction because we know if we are pulling them out of the core to receive support services, the gaps in their learning only become greater. So we are looking at our support services as a place to pre-teach critical vocabulary and then activities that will be similar to what is going to be happening in the core, so that when these students are in the core, they can experience a much higher level of success.
Look at this, we've been going way up. Do you think that's when, is that when you started looking at the passages and finish it? Because I talked to your mom about that.
It was more like right here, and then I got the idea of it, and then I started
doing better.
Yeah. I have second grade.
Second grade math, and and what grade were you in this last year?
Kindergarten.
Wow, but you did second grade math? Good for you.
The kids aren't afraid to share their data, and they're begging, can I see my graphs? Can I see my data? And they like to know that they have that chance to redo things, and it's about meeting the goal and not necessarily always meeting it on that day. They'll like retry, repractice.
We implemented a universal social emotional learning curriculum, and it's through that we understand that every single student is getting the same instruction, the same skills, the same expectations, but then the same levels of support if they're struggling in that area. Students that struggle with their social emotional learning have a direct impact on their academic growth.
The team understands that when we create a unit plan, that we have to build in these supports for students, and that the supports have to happen within the school day. So we talk about where are we going, what are the interventions that we need to have in place, and so are those interventions able to occur in the classroom or outside of the classroom. We try to get as many in classroom as possible for those algebra support classes and those teachers to have those students feel success.
We really appreciate the efforts of the staff to make relationships with the kids, that really does enhance their learning, and it enhances their experience that they have at our high school and at all of our other schools.
We're all district-wide really proud of the fact that our extended graduation rate is nearing 95%, and that, excuse me, that really comes back to the relationships that staff build with kids, teachers build with kids, that administrators build trust with teachers and kids in creating that opportunity.
We've worked on redesigning some of our formative assessments throughout the course so that kids have a chance to do that same kind of reflection on class assignments, and teaching them sort of explicit reading skills at the beginning of the year and how they decipher and decode a more complex primary document.
We still haven't cut down the vocabulary that they're not familiar with. So one of the hang-ups we have is
when we teach world history, are we going to look at which specific content pieces can we teach? That's not the case at White River, where we take a look at these skills that we can talk about how revolutions happen in a country, how political change then influences society, and we can move those from world history to U.S. history to civics. So in that way, world history at White River is far different than what we've taught in other districts.
You know, it's much more relevant to have skills that you're going to transfer and use elsewhere in life rather than, you know, knowing a specific date or knowing what happened on a specific date. And so I think that's another key thing that our team does and how our social studies classes are a little different.
Another thing that we're really proud of is our complete overhaul of the technology infrastructure in the district. And that will also allow us to provide new laptops for teachers and for students. And all of this is accomplished with the money from the technology levy that was passed.
The idea of using no textbook and using and relying on technology, everything is fluid, everything is current, and you can access common current patterns and apply them to past historical standards when you have when you're not bound to a text.
One of our goals is to move away from a textbook. That would be impossible without having students who have access to technology every day in the classroom. We build our curriculum around knowing that kids can access documents and information online.
And so when we had it scored, they got onto Google Drive and they pulled up their assessment and they're able to look at theirs, see all the comments that I wrote, and then at the bottom they can see their rubric, and then they can set goals for what they need to do to improve.
Well, and I found the kids were more excited about being able to take an assessment on the computer. Correct. That engagement piece to it, they felt very mature about it. And we did some lead-up lessons on how to use the technology for their assessments.
We recently sat down with English teachers to try to divvy up, going back to the SBAC, knowing the SBAC is coming, and Common Core. How do we divvy up and best teach the Common Core with history, social studies, and English working together?
One of the things that we're most proud of as a board would be our efforts to team with the superintendent and the administrators to help the teams in the building be successful and to help them focus on their objective, which is to improve student learning.
There's a culture of service in the district office, and we never forget that we're here to support the work that's happening in our buildings. And from getting our school buses started in the morning to ensuring that our buildings are ready to go and have all the resources they need to support our kids, to making sure that the systems are in place to help them focus on learning and not some of the other requirements that get people bogged down. The management tasks, everything we do is designed to help them focus on the mission of our organization and supporting them.
This year, our graduating class of 2015 has set yet another record at White River High School with $1.7 million worth of scholarship money generated by the entire class. There's 288 kids in the class, so extremely proud of that feat. And we've got kids that are moving to the four-year university level, the two-year community college level, as well as technical and community colleges that will be able to take advantage of that financial aid as a result of their accomplishments in high school.
So you could use fingers if it's 10 or more, or you could count back using your fingers.
And so you have more than one strategy.
Yes, I use strategies for adding too.